We are all moving in the same direction through our daily choices, both personal and collective. Only by promoting smaller, individual efforts will we have the power to affect greater, collective change, to ensure more sustainable and equitable growth. We, the public development banks, commit to cooperate, reinforcing our global coalition to foster responsible finance, promoting sustainable agriculture and agribusiness, fighting against climate change, protecting biodiversity, achieving gender equality, investing in private sector development. Join us to finance in common, leaving no one behind.
Hello everyone and welcome back and welcome to the closing session. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of this incredible edition of Finance in Common 2021. It's time to say thank you to all of you, thank you to our audience, both here, at home, in the office, wherever you may be in the world. It's time, obviously, to thank our organizers, to thank everyone who's been with us for these wonderful 2 days, and also the more than 200 speakers that we've had during the 2 days. It's been quite an event. In this final session, we'll understand the collaboration between FiCS and the G20, which is coming up, as we all know, and COP26, which is also on its way, and the vision that will lead the next edition for 2022, and the objectives of the coalition for the coming year. So this is really our closing session, and I thank you once again for being with us. So to start, I'd like to call on the stage once again Rémy Rioux, Chief Executive Officer of Agence Française de Développement and Chairman at IDFC. Thank you.
Excellencies, colleagues, so after 2 days of insightful and intense work that will be captured in a press communiqué prepared by the Secretariat and CDP very soon, yes, the 2021 edition of the Finance in Common Summit is about to end. And my feeling is that the FiCS movement is only getting stronger and gaining ground because we are on something big, because we are on something true, on something respectful, on something open, because we are all about hard work, substance, research, and impact. Because we PDBs, across the diversity of our voices, we are all looking in the same direction. This is the meaning of the logo behind me, towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. Thank you so much, Cassa, Depositi and Prestiti. You've done it with so much elegance. Dear Dario, dear Antonella, dear Enrico, your team, so much dedication, so much professionalism. This is a lesson for all of us. And I also want to extend my gratitude to our multilateral partners. They were so numerous who joined their distinct voices earlier today so powerfully, and to the 23 CEOs of national development banks that were put under the international spotlight. Your institutions are so innovative, your actions are so impactful, you are so deeply rooted in your respective constituencies. You deserve attention and support from all colleagues around the world. I'm thinking of NABARD, dear Dr. Shintala in India. I'm thinking of BDMG, dear Sergio in Brazil. I'm thinking of Bancoldex, dear Javier in Colombia. I'm thinking of the Development Bank of Rwanda, dear Pritchett, so many others. So what are the next steps now? I will let Werner and Akin, on behalf of EIB and the African Development Bank, talk about their vision for the movement and promising plans for 2022. But let me stress three rendezvous for our community. First, yes, public development banks will be very present at COP26 next week for climate. So count on us in Glasgow, and count on us as well in Kunming next spring for COP15 on nature. Second, the G20 has asked us to report on our progress, so we have to make further progress by the summit in Indonesia in 2022. And last but not least, I would like to fix a third rendezvous, which is to demonstrate next year that FiCS turns even more operational. So let's talk operations, project. Let's talk about what we do on a daily basis, financing on the ground. And let's make FiCS a platform to originate way more collective and quality deals aligned with the SDGs and Paris. I'm thinking about the just transition in South Africa. See the transformation of Eskom. We are so many creditors of Eskom in this room. Let's join forces for that. I'm thinking about the Amazon. Gustavo Montezano, the vice chairman of IDFC and the CEO of BNDES in Brazil, will say a word after me. Let's try to clean the oceans. We started it with KfW and EIB and AfD. There are so many needs, there are so many opportunities for investment. I can only invite all of you, dear colleagues, to explore and implement them. So it's not a conclusion, it's an opening to the future of finance in common. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to call up Werner Hoyer once again. Thank you, the president of the IAB, for his contribution. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, caro Dario, cher Rémy, dear colleagues, after 2 full days of engaging discussions, we have come to the end of the second Finance and Common Summit, an outstanding effort by our hosts, GDP and IFAD, and by the Finance and Common Secretariat at Agence, France, Développement, despite really challenging circumstances, and an incredible hospitality extended to those of us who had the privilege to be here sur place, on site. Let me share with you my appreciation for the proactive engagement of so many colleagues from the worldwide family of public development banks. It is very remarkable how this summit managed to establish itself as a new format, adding real value for open and frank discussion on a number of crucial topics for so many of our institutions. There is a shared sense that we are now truly standing at the crossroads, and that in multiple senses. Next month, COP26 will give important directions on how the world will counter climate change going forward. At least I hope so. These days here have not raised necessarily my level of certainty. And we hope to put an end to the COVID pandemic on the horizon. Engineering a green, sustainable and inclusive recovery will be a major challenge for us, for most of us. But let us not forget at the same time that the clock is ticking in respect to the achievement of the wider set of sustainable development goals as well. And this is good, why we're going to talk about nature next year much more in Kunming. In the last 2 days we have heard much about challenges, but also about opportunities in the field of sustainable agriculture, agribusiness, and food security. We have heard about the crucial importance of gender equality. In a session jointly hosted by AfD and EIB, we have heard about the importance of investments in water and sanitation for the resilience of countries. It's time now for us to put our words into action. And exactly there lies the added value of finance in common. By bringing the wide family of public development banks together into concrete action, moving forward in a better coordinated manner, building on each other's strength, supporting each other's courage in tackling the great challenges of our time. I'm coming from the world of competition, but we need much more than competition among ourselves is cooperation and production of synergies. After these 2 successful days, I'm confident that we will be able to keep up this good spirit of openness and cooperation. Finance in common is showing us that we can achieve so much if we have the courage to try. This is why I'm already looking forward to continue our discussions at Finance in Common Summit to take place in autumn next year. The African Development Bank and the European Investment Bank will have the privilege of co-hosting the next summit. Over the next month, we will engage to develop a program of shared relevance for public development banks at the heart. Let's show courage together. We will not reach the Sustainable Development Goals, nor will we be able to meet the climate goals of Paris on the basis of doomsday scenarios, but rather more in the spirit of yes, we can. If we have the courage to develop new ideas, employ new technologies, also at the climate front, and then move together. Let's show courage. Let's take responsibility by joining forces. I hope to see many of you again, at the latest in 1 year's time. Thank you very much, and again, thanks to our fantastic hosts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now the next speakers they will be online. They're not here, but I will begin with Gustavo Montesano. He's was mentioned earlier, Vice Chair of IDFC, and he's connected with us. Thank you for being here today. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to congrats Finance in Common for hosting the event. As you know, at this point in time, security of food systems, food providing, alongside with sustainable energy, there are critical steps in order to solve or minimize the social gap we have around the world. But doing that in a sustainable, long-term, and green way. And from our experience from Brazil, we know that's doable. We know that's feasible. We can provide secured food from sustainable agriculture, and we, as a world, we can generate sustainable, green, and ecological energy for all citizens of the world. And working together, either if you are regional, global, continental, public development banks, working together, we're stronger, and much stronger than adding any one of us. Working collectively, working as a group, such as we do through IDFC, is critical that we exchange partnerships. More than sharing capital, more than sharing funding balance sheet, we want to share, we do need to share minds, we do need to share knowledge, and we do need to share hearts. Having banks from all around the world, for example, invest in America Latina, in Latin America, alongside with BNDES, will help us in preparing projects. And as important as mobilizing capital is deploying capital. Preparing projects, I would say that's one of the key, if not the most key bottleneck for emerging market countries such as Brazil. Investing alongside with us, you'll be helping on monitoring projects, on evaluating impact, on creating governance, and developing taxonomy that properly taking into consideration biodiversity and climate gains. Let's work together. Let's share our balance sheets. Let's share our brains, our hearts, in order to bring to the sustainable future. I hope to see you in presence next month in COP in Glasgow. Quite confident that after the COP26, will be in a different position to be speaking and doing more things collectively. In the name of the IDFC, congratulates Finance in Common for this such a relevant key event at this point in time, and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dominique Ziller, the Vice President of IFAD, who will also be connected remotely. Hello, welcome, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I would like to thank you all for your presence and for your engagement with this important event. And I would especially like to recognize the role of the Italian presidency of the G20 in supporting Finance in Common, in particular Minister Daniele Franco for his leadership here. I would also like to thank my old friend Rioux. Good to see you again, Rémy, as Chief Executive Officer of the Agence Française de Développement and as Chair of the International Development Finance Club, for his forward-looking approach and for our strong partnership. Furthermore, I must also mention the role of Giovanni Gorno Tempini, the president of the Cassa, Depositi e Prestiti, for both the hosting of the Finance in Common Summit and the strong partnership in launching the Public Development Bank's platform. Professor Vigano's analysis of how public development banks can better contribute to inclusive and sustainable agriculture was also a much appreciated contribution to these discussions. We in IFAD have been co-leading this initiative because we are committed to transform world's food systems, making them more productive, more sustainable, more resilient, more inclusive, with the small-scale producers and other rural people at the center of that transformation. The changes we want to foster depend on all of us, working on partnerships and using our convening power to leverage greater investments in favor of those who need it the most, which are the small-scale producers and the small farmers. Now, more than ever, public development banks have the opportunity to become leaders in driving change, to overcome challenges, to unlock opportunity, to build a better world, to ensure more equitable societies. And I see my friend Akin here. We have worked on that in former times, and I'm happy to see the African Development Bank engaged in this and on our side on this one. We stand ready to do our part to meet the serious funding gap. We are glad to have seen in these 2 days that many of you are also ready to do your part. The Public Development Bank's platform will be a knowledge hub to provide the banks with essential information and expertise, while it will also contribute to the development of the Public Development Bank system overall. Next year, we will report on the progress at next year's summit, and I strongly urge all of you who have not done it yet to join this effort. The Public Development Banks can be ideal fillers of financial gaps if they reach their full potential. Developed countries should concretely explore the possibility of reallocating special drawing rights via public prescribed holders as suggested in the G20 communique. Prescribed holders like IFAD and other public development banks should ensure the best use of these funds to finance projects and other public banks as close to the field as possible. Together we can transform food systems, we can rebuild a greener, more resilient economy, and we can contribute to leave no one behind, as we all promised to do in 2015. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I see that our next speaker is connected already. It is with pleasure that we welcome the President of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of a very productive and engaging 2 days of our Global Finance in Common Summit. Very well done, my very dear and dynamic friend, Rémy Rioux. Outstanding job as always. Well done to the Finance in Common partners. A very big thank you to Cassa, Depositi, Prestiti, and IFAD for your outstanding job hosting us for this summit. A big thank you to the government of Italy for your hosting all of us. Molto bene. We finance in common because we face the common challenges globally, from COVID-19 pandemic to building quality healthcare infrastructure, climate change, debt, and fiscal challenges facing countries and the private sector, as well as how to create jobs as we reboot the global economy. Because we are a collective, we can pool knowledge, co-finance, syndicate, deploy risk-sharing instruments to attract the private sector financing we badly need at scale as we handle these challenges. In order to continue making a difference where it matters, and at the scale where it matters, as public development finance institutions and as partners, we must share and leverage our resources for large transformative projects. To do so, I believe we need to work on 5 S's: support, system, synergy, scale, and sustainability. Nations and the private sector need our support, especially concessionary financing. We need to work as one cohesive system, able to tackle the challenges facing nations, private sector, youth and women, whether in the middle income, low income, or fragile states or transition states. Everyone must feel our impact. We need to work in synergy, not as isolated components. The outcome of our efforts must be greater than the sum of the individual parts. Whatever we do, we must work at scale. And finally, the sustainability of our actions will depend on our support for building strong institutions and policies. Many of the global challenges we are addressing are like what I call the huge tree you find all over Africa, called the baobab tree in Africa. Now, you can never put your arms around a baobab tree. You need several people to join hands around a baobab tree. The same applies to transformative projects, what I call baobab projects. Whether they are on energy, transport, ports, agriculture, ICT, health, or pharmaceuticals. Baobab projects require multiple hands of partners to make them work. So today, let us commit to work together collectively on transformative baobab-type projects, where the power of our collective work and partnerships will cause massive impacts on economies and in the lives of people, especially youth and women. I'd like to share some of this with you, because Rémy says share our vision. To advance on our collective transformative agenda, public development banks should invest in the private sector for quality infrastructure. To reduce infrastructure-related debt, public and private partnerships will become more crucial for financing infrastructure at scale. We must collectively address the huge financing gap facing women entrepreneurs, especially in Africa, where I am based as president of the African Development Bank, where we estimate a financing gap of $42 billion. And that's why the African Development Bank Group is going full steam ahead with our Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, or called AFAWA program. And this year alone, we have provided $427 million for nearly 3,000 women-led small and medium-sized enterprises all across the continent. We must accelerate actions collectively to create jobs for Africa's youth and unleash youth-based wealth in Africa. And that is why we are working with African countries and partners on the establishment of youth entrepreneurship investment banks. Now, this will be financial institutions for young Africans run by top-notch financial experts and bankers to create new financial ecosystems around Africa's youth and unleash their potentials. We must prepare for the inevitable consequences of climate change and accelerate the uptake of renewable energy, and support African countries in particular because they feel the negative impacts massively. And that's why the African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation have launched what's called the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, or AAAP. We intend to mobilize $25 billion to scale up adaptation actions. We must ensure that Africa's recovery is green and resilient. And that's why the African Development Bank, with our partners, we're strongly committed to the $20 billion Desert to Power program. The Desert to Power program will deliver access to electricity to about 250 million people across 11 countries of the Sahel. That's the kind of Baobab project I'm talking about. We must attract more foreign direct investment to Africa. And that's why, among other reasons, the African Development Bank Group took the initiative, along with other partners, to create the African Investment Forum. It is a forum where bankable projects are presented, deals are closed, and partners work together to bring projects to financial closure. The 2021 Africa Investment Forum will be held on the 1st to the 3rd of December in Abidjan via a hybrid mode. You are all cordially invited to Africa's premier investment marketplace. Finance in Common is the perfect platform to turn ambition into action and bring about real results. You can count on the African Development Bank Group. Together we can and we must make a difference. Showing our strong support for Finance in Common, the African Development Bank Group and the Association of African Development Finance Institutions co-hosted the first Finance in Common Spring meeting in May of this year. Following this excellent meeting in Rome, I look forward to the next Finance in Common meeting, which the African Development Bank will co-host with the European Investment Bank in later next year, with my friend and colleague, President Werner. Together, as public development banks, we will make a difference. Let us join forces. Let us move from love letters to actions. Let us originate and deliver concrete Baobab projects. See you all in 2022 in beautiful Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your message. And now it's with great pleasure that I introduce the European Commissioner for the Economy, Paolo Gentiloni.
Over the past 20 months, the world's attention was understandably caught by the immediate health and economic fallout of the pandemic. Yet, we must not lose sight of the longer-term goals we have agreed on globally. We have less than 10 years to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. COVID has made this task even more challenging. The United Nations 2021 SDG report warns that the pandemic has reversed years of progress on poverty, education, and gender equality. Eurostat's 2021 monitoring report on the SDGs shows that Europe is lagging behind on climate action and on affordable and clean energy. However, there is reason for hope. The development of vaccines in record time shows what the world can achieve when we work together towards a common goal and mobilize the necessary resources to get there. This is precisely the spirit behind the Finance in Common initiative, which we support wholeheartedly. We want to strengthen our partnership with public development banks to build momentum for the 2030 targets. The European Commission has made alignment to the SDGs a key strategic priority behind every measure we adopt. Sustainable development is now mainstreamed into the policy-making and economic coordination processes like the European semester. And we have reaffirmed our commitment to the 2030 agenda with very ambitious proposals to accelerate the transition to a more sustainable economy and society. The first is the European Green Deal, with our aim to reach climate neutrality by 2050 and cut emissions by 55% by the end of this decade. The Fit for 55 package we unveiled in July sets out the specific measure to meet our goals for 2030. This is the most comprehensive and far-reaching climate legislation ever adopted, and a clear sign that Europe is serious about the green transition. At the same time, we are also mindful that the transition be not just green, but also fair. Dedicated funds to mitigate the impact on the most affected regions and sectors will ensure that no one is left behind. The second major initiative is Next Generation EU, with up to 720 billion euros in common issuance to finance investments and reforms in our member states. This is much more than a plan to kickstart the recovery. With the majority of funds earmarked to support the green and digital transition, it is our strategy to put our economies on a more sustainable and inclusive growth path. Next Generation EU will help raise the EU's public investment to GDP ratio to almost 3.5% next year, the highest level in over a decade. Yet, we are all too aware that the investment needs to achieve the green transition are so large that public financing alone will not be enough. Private finance will be crucial if you are to meet this goal. Public development banks have a key role to play in mobilizing private finance and channeling financial flows towards sustainable development. Our InvestEU program is one example of how we are trying to encourage this. It provides our partner institutions like the EIB Group, the EBRD, and other public development banks with an EU guarantee of 26 billion euros to de-risk projects of high added value and attract private investors. We expect InvestEU to mobilize around 370 billion euros of public-private investments. And we have set a target of at least 30% of the whole InvestEU program to support investments that contribute to our climate goals. As G20 development ministers agreed in Matera in June, strengthening multilateral cooperation and mobilizing all possible resources will be needed to achieve the SDGs. And the G20 is uniquely placed to lead the way in this effort. So we welcome the Italian G20 presidency endorsement of finance in common, and we encourage future G20 presidencies to continue promoting this kind of coordination between governments and public development banks. Finally, as we look ahead to the COP26 conference in Glasgow, let me recall the EU's commitment to scale up our contributions to international climate finance and support developing countries. This was restated most recently by EU finance ministers, who also recalled the crucial role of multilateral development banks in scaling up climate-related investments and in mobilizing private climate finance. The challenges are immense, but I am optimistic that we can keep our promise to current and future generations if we all work together to finance in common. Finance in common, the achievement of the SDGs and the 2030 agenda. Thank you. Grazie e buon lavoro.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the Commissioner. And now, since we've been talking about G20 so much, and we are in the city of the G20, in representation of the current G20 presidency, we'll have a video message from the Italian Economy and Finance Minister, Daniele Franco.
Good afternoon. It is a great pleasure for me to be here today. We are grateful to the Agence, Française, the Développement for launching this initiative last year, and to Cassa, Depositi, Prestiti, and IFAD for co-hosting this second edition. Let me also thank all the participants for actively engaging in the proceedings. The agenda of these 2 days has been very rich, ranging from agriculture to green growth, from private to social investment. These are also critical dimensions to build a solid and sustainable recovery. As G20 presidency, we shaped our agenda around three pillars: people, planet, and prosperity, striving to promote the development of new paradigms to enable a robust and sustainable long-term global recovery. Finance ministers and central bank governors met for the fourth and last time on October 13th in Washington, D.C., in the run-up to the G20 Leaders Summit to be held on 30-31st October in Rome. As we approach the end of our presidency, let me briefly recall some of the main achievements. Supporting low-income, small and vulnerable countries, which have suffered very much from the consequences of the global downturn, has been high on the Italian presidency agenda. The G20 was instrumental to reach an agreement on new allocation of special drawing rights, equivalent to $650 billion, the largest in the history of the International Monetary Fund. We recently agreed on options for channeling SDRs toward the most vulnerable countries. In addition, we agreed to suspend the debt in service suspension initiative until December 2021 and to implement the common framework on debt treatment. These initiatives have provided liquidity for low-income and vulnerable countries in a very difficult moment, while laying the foundation for a structural approach to address debt issues. Finally, the G20 launched an independent review of the capital adequacy framework of multilateral development banks, MDBs. We expect the review to improve our understanding of the various MDBs' capital adequacy frameworks and to see whether there is further room in their balance sheets to assist emerging economies, as well as low-income countries. Enabling future generations to handle shocks and reducing the world's vulnerability to future pandemics, alongside immediate and emergency interventions, has been a second key area of our presidency. The G20 has focused on strengthening pandemic preparedness, prevention, and response, and on improving international governance and coordination between global health and finance policymakers. Our ambition is to launch a structured coordination arrangement between finance and health ministries, thus enhancing cooperation and policy coherence among key stakeholders, while solving the problem of insufficient and fragmented financing for pandemic preparedness. Mobilizing all effort for the green transition has been a third key area of engagement this year. The Italian G20 presidency has notably put green issue at the center of the G20 agenda as a cross-cutting item. At our last ministerial meeting, we reached the consensus to coordinate efforts to tackle climate change and environmental degradation, and to promote transitions towards greener economies. This commitment to international coordination is a message of critical importance, especially as we head towards the COP26 in 2 weeks. Our presidency successfully re-established the Sustainable Finance Working Group, creating a permanent forum to discuss climate and sustainability issues within the G20 finance track. A multi-year G20 roadmap for sustainable finance prepared by the working group was endorsed at the last ministerial meeting. This roadmap foresees a structured cooperation among all relevant G20 work streams, and it will act as the cornerstone for future G20 action across all the components of the Green Agenda. Advancing the infrastructure agenda. We also brought forward the agenda towards quality and sustainable infrastructure. We put maintenance among the infrastructure priority for 2021, with endorsement of the policy agenda on infrastructure maintenance, recognizing our adequate planning, funding, and resilience along the entire life of existing assets is critical and, for many countries, an urgent priority. We promoted a G20 discussion on sustainable infrastructure by hosting the first edition of the 2021 G20 Infrastructure Investors Dialogue on financing sustainable infrastructure for the recovery. Food security, nutrition, and food system have also been very high in our G20 presidency. The world is not on track to achieve zero hunger, as foreseen by the 2030 SDG agenda. Transforming food systems will require some $350 billion per year for the next decade. We need public development banks, PDBs, to be fully involved in the pursuit of a more sustainable agriculture. The G20 Matera Declaration recognizes the critical role of PDBs and welcomes the establishment of a working group on financing sustainable food systems, coordinated by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. Today, as a follow-up to that and grounded on the new coalition of partners, we also welcome the creation of a platform for sustainable food systems, connecting IFAD and PDBs to bring this agenda forward. The linkages between the G20 agenda and the Finance in Common initiative are quite evident. The role of PDBs was acknowledged in the latest G20 Finance Minister and Central Bank Governors communiqué, adopted in Washington a few days ago. This link is set to be maintained in the future, as the Finance in Common Coalition has been asked to report on its progress to ministers and governors in 2022. Financing needs are huge. We need resources to change a new growth paradigm of our economies. The entire development bank community must be part of the collective effort toward a better and more resilient development. Public development banks are diverse, but they share a mission. They play a crucial role in providing finance and offering technical support, in setting the standards, in providing incentives, and in creating missing markets, including in local currency. There is room for strengthening synergies and coordination among PDBs, and for leveraging their network to engage in joint operation and to develop innovative finance instruments. The Finance in Common Summit, which is due to become an annual event, has a crucial role to play in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, and big thank you to the Italian Finance Ministry, to Minister Franco. And we have come to the end of our Finance in Common Summit, this quite amazing 2 days. And to close the Finance in Common Summit, I'm pleased to give the floor to Dario Scannapieco, the CEO of Cassa, Depositi and Prestiti, thanking him for hosting.
Well, dear colleagues, members of the Finance in Common Coalition, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for your time and contribution during this intense 2 days Finance in Common Summit. And also thanks to IFAD, our partner, to the organization of the summit, to the World Federation of Development Finance Institutions, and of course AfD, and to the International Development Finance Club. Allow me to start, first of all, by thanking wholeheartedly my colleagues and those who have worked hard to organize this incredible event. And you really made it a unique event, so really thanks a lot. And also thanks, Alessandra, also for what you did during today. I mean, that was amazing, and also your resilience and strength. I mean, I think that this was due. And today we have heard, I mean, we were also helped, I would say, by the mild weather and the beauty of the place, but the event was really great. Today we've heard, and yesterday, from many heads of government, secretary generals of international organizations, EU and international institutions, high representatives, CEOs of public development banks and civil society leaders, their views on how the global finance architecture should change to support the economy recovery while better addressing the objectives set by the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. The COVID-19 pandemic has severely tested our global economic development model, questioning the ways and means through which we spur growth. The health and economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemics are well known. 100 million people have contracted the virus worldwide, and over 2.2 million died from the disease. Global GDP fell by 3.5% in 2020. 255 million jobs were lost in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Developing economies lost at least $220 billion in income. This health and economic crisis is soon becoming a long-term development crisis against which the world should act promptly. But what should the international community do? Now, colleagues, the time has come to use solidarity to plan and rebuild together. I mean, my friends from the IB know that I use the word solidarity very frequently. And this is a very important word that comes from the Latin word solidus. And solidus in Latin means strong. So when there are different parts of a body which are together, they are strong. And the concept of solidarity reminds us of mutual support, which is a key concept which shows us that strength lies in cohesion. We then need to invest in an inclusive and cohesive society aiming for a stronger, more equitable, and sustainable world. A huge amount of financial resources will be needed, and public development banks can be strategic allies in steering public and private investments in an innovative way towards sustainability. Strengthening the financing common coalition is then crucial, as it allows positive externalities by coordinating the 527 national, regional, and multilateral PBDs, representing in more than 150 countries with $18.7 trillion of assets, representing together 10% of global investments. It is an ambitious task as methodologies, priorities, lending policies, and implementing framework differ substantially among PDBs. Likewise, these last 2 days have confirmed that there is a common thread among our institutions and a common ground to work on. Financing common summits represent a great opportunity to share best practices and insights, cooperate with key government, private sector, and civil society stakeholders towards the achievement of the objectives of the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement. Also to propose transformative policies to the main international fora, implementing concrete joint thematic initiatives such as the European Strategic Cooperation Framework signed by Cassa, Depositi and Prestiti with the AfD, KfW, and the IFAD today. Cassa, Depositi and Prestiti wishes to continue to participate in this concerted effort, applying climate and social sustainability criteria in its projects. I very much agree with you, Rémy. And I liked a lot your appeal for concreteness. I think it's time to move from a concept of yes, we can, to a concept which can be summarized in yes, we are doing it. So we have talked a lot. It's now the moment in which we should turn good idea, very nice intention into concrete projects. And today we discussed about, sharing project pipelines, joining forces together with other European partners, and to show in concrete that we want to change and work together. Allow me to conclude by mentioning again and going back to the word solidarity. Pope John Paul II said, "Solidarity is not a feeling of vague compassion or shallow distress at the misfortunes of so many people, both near and far. On the contrary, it is a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good, that is to say, the good of all and each individual, because we are all really responsible for all." I repeat it, we are all really responsible for all. So, colleagues, we now have a common vision, and again, it's time to make our actions transformative for the generations to come, especially in sectors and regions where it is most needed, and to make sure that we work together to not leave anyone behind. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for really your insightful point of view in these 2 days of work. I wish everyone a safe journey back to your countries. So thank you again, and arrivederci.